Show me right from wrong. Give me light, make me strong. I know the road is long. Make me strong.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. My brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. My name is Hafiz Khan and welcome once again to Different Perspectives, a program that delves into interesting areas of Islam and life generally. So as I would usually do, let me start with my weekly reminder. Verily, Allah will never change the condition of a people until they desire to change it in themselves. And the second one, those who deny, and this is Surah 8, Surah Anfal, verse 73, those who deny the truth support one another. If you, meaning the Muslims, fail to do likewise, there will be great disorder and corruption in the land. And of course, we are not doing likewise. We are not working and supporting one another. And therefore, we see that there is great disorder and corruption in the world. So today, we continue our discussion on positive emotions. Last week, we covered hypnosis. We explained exactly what is hypnosis and separated the myths that were attributed to it. We also clarified its compatibility with Islam and the ill-informed views of some scholars that it has some input from jinns. The use of hypnosis is now governed by the same oversight system as all other medical professions, both physical and mental. Dr. Rakiran made the point that the different medical disciplines practiced around the world are now being appreciated by the different practitioners. He anticipates a fusion of these disciplines sometime in the future, as some of it have actually started already. We see that, as he pointed out, like acupuncture is now accepted in the West, and a number of other practices that came from the East. Previously, we showed how positive emotions or positive psychology and the concept of flourishing are also concepts directly encouraged in the fundamental practice and principles of Islam, namely salat, fasting, zakat, sadaqah, hajj, brotherhood, justice, kindness, forgiveness, and mercy. These all satisfy the elements of flourishing as conceptualized by Dr. Martin Seligman. These are: 1, positive emotions, that beautiful feeling in giving charity and showing kindness, respect, gratitude, and mercy. 2, engagement, the concept of flow. That is the total devotion required in the performance of salah. We focus and we blank everything else and focus on our positive thoughts in doing our salah. Relationships, building and sustaining positive relationships, Tawheed, God, our relationship with God. We as Muslims have duties to parents, spouse, children, family, the needy, our neighbors, and all human beings for that matter, animals and plants. And that's the responsibility that we have to follow as Muslims. So we have relationships with everything that we have to deal with in a positive manner. Meaning and purpose, belonging to and serving something that is greater than oneself. Our purpose is to implement the prescription in the Quran towards a life of peace and the straight path. So Islam is consistent with all these positive, both emotions and positive psychology. And last but not least, accomplishment. accomplishment is generated by self-discipline. And we have fasting and our daily salah that give us that practice every day to develop that kind of self-discipline that is required to accomplish things. Dr. Bakarian focused on the role of doctors and caregivers in stimulating the healing process by understanding and adopting this concept of positive emotions. We also touched on making this an integral part of the school curriculum, starting at the earliest level. This would ensure it becomes an integral part of our culture. This would go a long way in eradicating a large portion of our social problems that exist today in our society. It will also be daily therapy for those who may be experiencing challenges at home. When they get to the schools, they will become involved in or enveloped in that positive emotion that is generated within the school environment. And therefore, it will act as a therapy for them. So when they go back home to probably a negative environment, they would start over again. We do have a few areas that we would like to make you the viewers aware of. So I now bring back our learned Dr. Rakib Bakrilan. Jazakallah. Salam alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Good to be here again. Very nice. You're making a very good summary. Right.
So today we want to cover the mind-body interaction in regard to critical illness.
Right. So,
but I would like us to start first with understanding the power of the mind.
Okay. They're both the power of the mind and the connection between the body and the mind. They're very much interwoven. So if we take off from there, but let me, where we sort of ended up a little bit last week, so go into this kind of thing, where we were saying when this famous anthropologist, Dr. Ashley Montagu, found that, or could illustrate an X-ray when young children were missing out on love and attention, and how they become, some of them move into that thing called a failure to thrive, failure to thrive syndrome. You know, they have a loss of weight. They are apt to have cancer more readily than other children who were breastfed and so on. And as I said, doctors rushing to see what's the difference between bottle-fed babies and breastfed. What was the difference in the milk? It was nothing to do with milk. It was how the milk was delivered. And when it is breastfed, the baby is breastfed, the evidence, the empirical evidence shows less cancer, more affable youngsters growing up, more respectful kid, and who will move together with their parents and so on. So there's something very healthful about touching, cuddling, feeling, playing, even nonsense talk with your little baby. You know,
mind and emotion.
Right. You create a link with your even 11-month-old baby, where you toss the baby, let's say you laugh at, you laugh back, you cuddle, you tickle, and so on. Those things generate, I won't say bond, as you get in animals, a strong bonding, but a kind of thing resembling that, you know, so that later nobody can pull that baby away from that, from the security that the baby was having with the parents. And that's very, very important, very, very critical. I would like then, from what you were saying there, to move into a little bit about, just to illustrate some of the significant people, important people, who see how important mind, body, the physical body and the mind are so interwoven and so very critical. What some of these individual people are doing today in
research.
In research, very remarkably. They often refer to the area now as psychoneuroimmunology. And that area is going to develop and become something big. And so in that area, I'd like to mention, for instance, Dr. David Ornish, a cardiologist in Houston, Texas. I hope his office is still there, didn't get washed away with the hurricanes and so on. But Dr. David Ornish, he asked the question, can heart disease be removed or cured without medication or without surgery? And his answer is very much so, if not altogether so. And he talks about something that is more than positive thinking. He talks about sharing emotions. He says that loneliness can be a hidden secret killer. And he looks at people's lifestyle and encourage relationships and promoting and prompting in that direction. He said, bypass surgery bypasses the mind. Angioplasty, that looks good for the moment, is not all that good because it doesn't get a cause. So he looked at lifestyle and sharing emotions, and he's getting fantastic results with patients. Okay? So he's one of the people, Houston, Texas, that is moving in that way, where they find a relationship between mind, the power of the mind, and the physical body, very intimate, you know. And so what people are doing now, they're trying to tease out just how is this interrelationship working through, you know? Well,
but you know, just to make a point here, that interpretation of him, with the connection with the heart and the mind, is similar to what Islam teaches about the qalb.
Great.
You know?
Right, you can elaborate if you wish, I suppose. But actually, there are a lot of things in this direction that I find Islam is way ahead. Even when you go back to something like yoga practice and so on, centuries, Islam comes along and tells you about positions in prayer. Can you think of a better set of positions you can get for connecting you to some transcendence, you know, something out there, and bringing out the best in you, you know? I mean, you can, with all respect for yoga, I think it's very, very good, very healthy, but the positions of prayer in Islam, you can't be that.
Right.
You know, you go down, you bring blood to your head. As I said, when Nehru got up in the morning, he used to stand on his head to bring this fresh supply of blood to his head, and he wanted to see the world as it is today, upside down. But anyway, the thing is, Islam is very, everything that I come to know in this direction, I find fits in absolutely with Islam, perfectly, you know.
So you were saying about the different practitioners.
Then there's a fellow named Bernard Towers. Bernard Towers is looking at pain, cancer, and he's trying to get the body's own pharmacy to wake up. These people believe that if the mind can sometimes produce illness, cancer for that matter. For instance, if you're very stressed, you can cause yourself to develop bleeding stomach ulcers. You can, as Freud will tell you, you have emotional conflict, and the mind can turn that into stomach ulcers, hysteria, what have you, you know, and so on. And if the mind can do that, perhaps the mind could be prompted the opposite way to relieve these cancer situations and promote good welfare, good well-being, and so on, and help open the body's own pharmacy, you know. So Bernard Towers, looking at pain, cancer, and opening the body's pharmacy, and he finds that a lot of this can be done by meditation and hypnosis, and he's been working in this area very, very much so, and he reports on great success, but he also is saying now we have come to a point where we need the experts in this kind of area to come together and start seeing what we have in common, you know, so we could build something in a togetherness. Like, you know, the Quran is in chapter 4, verse 63, verse 64, where people of the book come to an equitable proposition between us and you. Let's see what we have in common.
Yeah.
You know, people read that, but do they know anything about it? You know, they don't. Well, that's on the religious side, but the same thing applies to the secular, if you wish, you know. Okay, then we have a fellow named Speely, David Speely, at Stanford University. And he took some women with breast cancer and also a control group. In other words, breast cancer, control group, and so on, 2 sets. And, well, 2 sets with cancer of the breast. One, he applied hypnosis. The other one, he didn't. The experimental one with the hypnosis, he caused them to imagine white cells developing and devouring the cancer cells.
Right.
And he came out with results that were very, very promising, you know. So there you get something that is, you know, waving a nice flag to you to saying, this is an area we need to develop and get together on and so on. And then there is a fellow named Norman Shealy, who uses guided biofeedback, guided imaging, and so on. And he has found that he can open the pharmacy. He produced beta endorphins in the body. Beta endorphins, they are the natural painkillers that the body can come up with. And he found he could do this with cancer patients and so on. Open up your own pharmacy within yourself, how you open it up. He said not only will there's guided imagery or guided meditation for that matter do it, but laughter, music, and so on. These things have potential, and he's experimented with them, he's found them useful, he's read about them, and he knows, and we need to look at that some more. And then there is a fellow named George, what's his last name now? Solomon or something like that. George Solomon, who says he's longing for the good old days when doctors will talk to their patients and not just listen to quickly what the patient says as a symptom, rather a prescription and say, come back and see me in 2 weeks. No, he sit with the patient, he let the patient come in to know what is being done, what's to be done, what's the patient's comment. So he gets to know the domestic life of the patient sometimes, you know. I'll give you an instance of something that really disturbed me about that kind of area where the shortchanging is. Give you one of my little experience. Not too long ago in Toronto, in Ottawa, I went to an ophthalmologist. And after putting a few drops of something in my eye, he put me in a cubicle room to sit. And he goes to attend to another. Then I discovered 4 patients being seen simultaneously. Where's the case history? I bet you he still doesn't know, even though I've seen it a number of times, he still doesn't know what I do for a living. You know? He probably still doesn't know my name properly because it's on the file there and the nurses look, etc. But anyway, what I'm saying, 4 patients simultaneously. Okay. Some things I wanted to say, I never got a chance to say to him. When I left, he gave me a little bottle of eye drop something. I was even trying to read this thing. Now, mind you, this is eye things we're concerned with, and you can't read the finest of print. You can't read it.
But it's small.
Right. The print is so small. And not only that, now watch what happened. After I left the office and came out in the sunlight, and I could read a little bit, that medicine he gave me expired 2 years ago. He probably didn't think I would look at that. 2 years ago. So that's the kind of thing we get happening. Well, I have been back since. But that is not unique to him. That is happening.
Yeah.
And I think these people are very right in saying, let's get back, as Solomon says, to the good old holistic days when you can talk to your doctor, you know, and the doctor will talk back to you, and you relate to each other and so on. But here, even in Trinidad, I find a lot of doctors will tell you, well, they don't tell you, but the impression is time is money, and their big concern is money. You know, if you go to Saskatchewan in Canada, where people are more, well, farm-oriented or whatever you want to call it, but they're good, nice, godly people. They take the Mennonites, for instance. I know some Mennonite doctors. You go into their office, and don't be surprised when the doctor says to you, let's kneel down and pray. Let's kneel down and pray. And you know, they're getting fantastic results, you know, fantastic results. The doctor gets to know you, you know the doctor very well, you work together, and the doctor is very pleased that there's success coming through, you know. And I say, hats off to you people, you know. That's human living. It's not as I have a symptom, I come in and you give me a medication, and we get a chance to...
Impersonal.
Right. In fact, sometimes here the doctors will tell you at the clinic, well, let's say if you ask the doctor, can I get your phone number in case the pharmacist want to ask me something about what you're recommending? You don't get the phone number.
That's right.
You know?
But there are a lot of doctors who do things the right way also.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But I can't help but say, you know, you can get some nice people like Dr. Avinash Devanarayan. Fantastic. You can talk to Ramesh Mathur nicely. Good people.
Right.
They know their stuff. But they're very, very, very good, eh? But there are many more go the other way, you know, and it is sad, you know. Anyway, so coming back to what we were saying there, we find, coming back to the mind-body interaction and so on, there's a woman named Caroline Thomas who at Johns Hopkins University, Medical School. They're one of the greatest long-term study, 40 years in this experiment, and found that the patients who, when you go back to their history, as babies or as infants, were not cuddled, were not hugged, were not loved sufficiently, were not given any intimate relationship. These are the people who became mentally unstable, the people who attempt suicide, and the people who get cancer, right? So one of the conclusions that came through from her work was that love and intimacy are very, very powerful, very, very important.
In early days.
Right, in the early days. Otherwise, these are the people who are going to grow up, they get cancer, more likely, they become mentally unstable. So the important thing here was the business about love and intimacy, and you put those kind of things into the picture, right? And I want to say perhaps a little bit very quickly about coming back on that love and intimacy here, where sometimes you get things like, I don't want anybody to interpret me the wrong way, like faith healing. And some of this comes in because our good doctors sometimes do not know they can provide hope with faith, but they don't really know. They want to do this, but they don't know how to do it. All they know is the mechanistic side of medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So when they get to a point where they can't move further, instead of saying, okay, we look at the other side here where you get a complementary approach, they hesitate to do this. And as I say, this is happening. This could run into legal, ethical issues, you know. When you don't know, say you don't know. Don't fool the patient, you know. And let's get something done properly about this. And, you know, the quacks, people with drugs and so on, become aware of this vacuum that doctors have there. And they get in there, and they take advantage of the situation.
They go to the other extreme on the other side.
Right. And then again, maybe before I go there, I should also mention something like this. There was, remember last week we mentioned something about, you repeated it here about talking about the love and intimacy, people who have meaningfulness in their life, who have purpose in their life, who have a vision in their life, and move with that vision, do very well. As a matter of fact, this brings to my mind, when you have a good vision in front of you, just some examples. Take Mahatma Gandhi, he moved with a vision. Mandela, he moved with a vision. Martin Luther King Jr., he moved with a vision. The name of that young lady, Malala, who got the Nobel Prize, the youngest Pakistani Muslim girl, with a vision, doing very, very well, you know? So when you have meaningfulness in your life, and you have purpose in your life, and like Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camp because he thought he was going to meet his wife later on, that prompted him to keep going and going, never giving up. And you find behind a lot of these things, you'll find a caring, loving feeling, you know? The loving aspect is so very, very important when you get to a broader scope even, you know? One of the best description I've ever seen for love is by St. Paul. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 talks about, he said, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not love, I become the sound and brass of a tinkling cymbal. Then he goes into a beautiful description of love. Love is always patient, always kind, always ready to excuse, and all sorts of things, you know, about love. Doesn't take revenge, always go for the truth. And then he ends up saying, and now thereby the faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. And that is why I want to emphasize, when we get hold of our young children, young people, impart loving relationship, and so on, we're moving way ahead, way good. And don't allow people to move your youngsters in the wrong direction. You know, some people even lure the youngsters, the teenagers, to come and help sell some drugs and so on, you know, ridiculous. You pull your youngsters away. And that's where the crooks come in, the quacks come in, capitalize on your youngsters and so on. And you talk about this healing and that faith healing. Now, faith healing, I believe in faith. There's a lot to be said for it, but there's some quackery that goes on in this business of faith healing. You know, I'd like to see, somebody comes in for faith healing, and whatever the preacher or whatever would do there by way of faith healing, you see a person standing there and he typically falls back, and somebody behind holding him up. But my friend, I've demonstrated the same thing with hypnosis. I wasn't calling it faith healing. I said, when I wave my hand like this, the person collapses. I'm saying, I'm not knocking your faith healing, but I'm telling you, I didn't call the name of God. I didn't call the name of Jesus or anything. Look at the same effect. You interpret however you want to,
No, but there have been a lot of studies done on, and very careful observation done on these issues, and it show that they have no basis.
But let me tell you something. For me,
Show clearly that they don't have any
I'm glad
basis.
you say that, because for me, you talk about you're a faith healer. How is it I've never been able to see you? What you're doing is a little minor thing. A leg is about half an inch too short, or a little asthmatic thing, minor matter or something, Let me see you. This baby is born without an arm. Put an arm. Or the baby hasn't got a leg. Put a leg. How is it nobody has ever been able to?
No, but there have been a number of researches done on these, because that has been going on for a
And
while.
you know what you just said there?
And they have always shown that there is no before and after examination.
Right.
Right? So there is no empirical evidence to show that these are healings.
Right. And what you say, right? There's no follow-up. You don't know what has happened.
That's right.
In fact, some situations have been made worse. The person say, okay, I can give up my crutch.
And they fall on
and damage themselves
That's
worse,
right.
And so on. So they need that kind of thing to get any kind of validation.
So those have been done. There are a number of studies, right, have been done on that, and it shows clearly.
Right. Let me show you one of the spin-off from this kind of, the fraudulent part. Some of these guys who claim they could do this miraculous thing, some of them have 2 and 3 jet planes. One guy, I don't think I want to mention any name, I don't want to run any legal hassle. A guy even had a town in the United States named after him.
Yeah. Well, recently, actually, there was some number of investigations being done at the federal level by the Department of Justice.
That's right.
On a number of them.
Right. Some very popular names.
Yeah.
Maybe better not mention names,
That's
but
right.
there are facts and evidence and so on to back that up.
Yeah,
but listen to the excuse that some people give, which I think is really so bad. A guy would say, we have to get the word of God to the world before Jesus comes back. He could come back tomorrow. I said, he's not coming back tomorrow. I mean, he can come back before I even finish speaking.
Yeah.
I said, no, he's not coming back today. Because you know why? It's already tomorrow in Australia. But in any case, what I'm saying is, the guy is saying, I have to get the word of God to everybody. So I need a good plane. I don't need a broken down car. I might even need 3 jets in case one of the jets isn't working, And the Mirror carried a picture some time ago with some guy who had 90 Rolls Royce. I think I mentioned that last week, for his particular guest and so on. You hear of some pastors living in multi-million-dollar homes, And Jesus said, foxes have holes, birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Okay? So, when he made his triumphal ride into Jerusalem, Jesus, did he go in a Mercedes-Benz? A Porsche? No, a donkey, the lowest, as I said, kind of point. He rode in a donkey into Jerusalem, okay? And now you might say, well, okay, they didn't have Mercedes-Benz in those days, but surely they had good stallions. He could have gotten one of the best stallions and ride it. The point is, there's a capitalizing...
Well, they say that power corrupts.
Yes.
Absolute power corrupts.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
So that's what these guys read. So we should leave them right there.
Right.
And focus.
Right. But at least some of the people who might listen to us can say, let me keep my guard up a little bit so I don't get duped.
That's right.
Right. But we want to be fair, we want to be loving, we want to be kind. Now, coming back to faith, however, though, I'll probably talk about this a little in a little while here, but there is merit in faith.
For sure.
And hope, you know?
And it's part of the whole positive emotional issue.
Right. Let me tell you, well, okay, let me move to another little area here for a moment. It is well known that caregivers.
Before you continue on that one, let's take a little break and come back.
Sure, okay.
At times I feel that the sun is hidden by a hazy sky.
A God's gift brought straight from the farm to your plate. Jazza Rice, with its premium range of basmati rice, helping you prepare your perfect, mouth-watering dishes just as you planned. Jazza Rice, blessings in each plate.
Every now and then we need.
This is a Pakistani product, and all over the world, at least try it once. And if it's good, please let us know. We need your encouragement.
Just a little time to breathe.
Remember the good old days when we had roti with rich, creamy butter? Mmm. Eh?
Hey, give them a roti.
Greenfields butter, available nationwide.
Reduce the sugar chubby with the same great taste. Lots of magic fruity flavors straight from more healthy way. It tastes so yummy, chubby, chubby, yummy. 25% less sugar chubby. Be active, be healthy, drink lots of chubby. Kicking football, playing cricket, having fun in the sun. Reduce the sugar chubby, keeps you cool and refreshed. It tastes so yummy, chubby, chubby, yummy. 25% less sugar chubby. Jumping rope, running races, have fun. It tastes so yummy, chubby. Drink the more healthy way.
Welcome back, brothers and sisters, and we are dealing with positive emotions, and we are looking at the body and mind and body interaction in terms of critical illness. And Dr. Criddle was making a point.
Right. Well, I just want to say here now that volunteers, people who volunteer their service to help sick people, let's say, do you know that volunteers are people who have a good hold on themselves, know themselves, their self-esteem, and if they get sick, they tend to recover more quickly than others. They get a good feeling out of living, out of life, because they know they're helping, they're doing something. And volunteers tend to live longer, by the way. This is a generally.
And they get sick less.
Exactly, right. And they have very good hope, right. Another thing that we sometimes notice is that in our kind of culture out here, particularly in the West, touching is, as I mentioned before, with little babies is all very important. But even with adults, touching can be very, very important, as volunteers have shown when they touch. And Dolores Krieger, a very famous person who's written on the value of touching and feeling. And our culture needs more of that, but of course we have to be careful where we touch. But it's very, the touching and the feeling, it's very important. As a matter of fact, there was a woman with histiocytic lymphoma, ready, nothing more could be done, ready to die. And the doctor said to her, look, why don't you just go home, instead of going 300 miles to a clinic and get medication that's going to make you worse, really. Go home and just die peacefully. And then a nursing friend of the woman said, look, go and see Dr. Siegel in New Haven. So she went there. And she said, just by the way he touched me when he shook my hand, I knew something better was going to happen. She recovered, right? By the touch, the way he welcomed her, touched her. He admitted he was a little bit uneasy with the expectations he had when he found out during the process, but he was happy that she recovered. Now this touching and so on, specifically for the Christian, look at this. Jesus healed, Jesus was walking and a whole big crowd following him. And there was a woman who had an issue of blood for several years. And she said, this is coming back to that faith business, where it can actually have a good reality. She said to herself, this is in Mark's Gospel, chapter 5, about verse 25 or so. If I could just touch the hem of his garment, I'll be healed. So she went over and she touched him, and she was healed. Jesus turned around and said, who touched me? He could feel some kind of energy moved out of him. And of course, the people always say, what do you mean who touched you? So many people around you. But the touch and the faith that the woman had, the faith is the important thing. He went to Jairus' daughter, who was said to be dead. Some people said she wasn't really dead, she was sleeping. But one gospel reported her as dead. And he said to her in Arabic, Tabitha Kumi, made arise by a touch. And she came back alive, right? Jesus said to blind Bartimaeus, thy faith has made thee whole. Be done unto you according to thy faith, okay? Right? Jairus' daughter, I think, was in Mark 5:40 something. Bartimaeus, again, is in Mark 10 or something. Anyway, doesn't matter so much. Bartimaeus, the blind man, was healed, okay? So, listen to the words of Jesus. Be it done unto you according to thy faith. If you don't have any faith, probably nothing. You just can't say, well, you're the godly man, you have all the power. Be it done unto you according to thy faith. And to show you where that faith, belief, was so very important, here's something that many people read in the Bible and they quickly overlook it. Mark chapter 6, verse 5 reports, in Nazareth, Jesus could not do any great works, could not do any miracles. Why? These are the words of the Bible. Because the people did not believe he could. And the same thing is reported in Matthew chapter 13, I think, verse 58 or something like that. The same thing. He couldn't do any great miracles, any great work in Nazareth, because the people did not believe he could, right? So what we're saying here is the faith, the belief, are terrifically important in getting that mind to link up with the physiology, with the body, okay? And there's an area in psychology called behavior therapy that is showing how powerful this can be. We talk about what is called affirmative faith and belief. You affirm within yourself, I can and I will. You get that going, and behavior therapists will tell you, your thoughts and your images will determine your behavior, your state. If you're down low, depressed, and so on, we'll change this thinking that you have, because depressed people tend to look at everything that could possibly go wrong, everything that could be negative. They look at their failures. Behavior therapists will say, no, let's turn this around. Look at your successes, what you can achieve, not what you failed in. If you fail in something, turn it around and put it as an asset. And they're getting great success with this kind of thing. To give you an example, a real example of this kind of thing, about their mindset can change a person from depression, let's say, to something forward-looking. A rabbi, it's a true story. Rabbi lamented his son death. The son was about 21. Bringing the son up beautifully, perfect, you know, holy, religious, nice. The son got killed in an accident, car accident, suddenly at age 21. Well, this threw the rabbi, the true story, for a loop. Rabbi couldn't move, depressed, tears, couldn't speak. Went to so many doctors, they called so many different doctors, try and nudge him. He wouldn't move. Until one day, in psychology, this is what was said to him. Rabbi, I think your thinking, your image, and so on, needs to turn around. You brought the son up, a holy, nice young boy, right? You know everybody's going to die someday. Your son died. Nice, holy person. Rabbi, where do you think your son is right now? Well, he must be on the way to God. An envious destination, going to God,
That's right.
to the arms and bosom from whence he came. Now, Rabbi, are you going to be sad about that? Or are you going to be happy? You brought him into the world, you did a good job, and now he's heading to that destination.
That everybody wants to go.
Everybody wants to go. That, believe it or not, thinking changed the rabbi. For the first time, he began to move out of his tears, out of the depression. You see, we sometimes say, you know, we are spiritual beings. We may have a divine destination, but we go through a human experience toward that destination that we have in front of us, you know. So that thinking with the rabbi changes life. And again, you'll see, on the religious side, you'll see some things that fit in very nicely. I can't think of right off the bat something in the Quran there, but I'm sure the Quran has. But I can tell you in Christianity, St. Paul in Romans chapter 12, verses 1 to 2, St. Paul says, "Brethren, be transformed by the renewing power of your mind." In other words, your mind, the way you think, can change you. A famous philosopher named Epictetus says, man is influenced not so much by things out there, but by the way he sees, how he interprets these things. So what we sometimes do is
Well, on the Islamic side,
yeah.
the whole process of Ramadan
Hey,
does
very
exactly
good point.
the same thing.
Very good point. Many people, I don't know if they really give us that due thought. What is Ramadan about? The intention.
Changing your mind.
Learning
Making-
self-restraint. Things that are ordinarily legally allowed, you're now being trained to restrain yourself on these things. And if you could do that with what's allowed, how much more you would be able to do it when you realize,
That's right.
you know, on things that are disallowed.
And that's an exercise I do every year.
Right. So here you have Epictetus saying, it's not so much the thing affecting you, but how you see it. He said, we're not only concerned about what disease the man has, but what kind of man has the disease? What kind of man? So you could deal with that kind of situation, you know? And John Milton, great classic poet, wrote very nicely when he had Satan saying, said this, John Milton, the classic poet, the mind in its own self, in its own time and place, can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven, depending on what you want to do with it, you know? So, and Jesus himself also said, in Luke chapter 17, I believe this, the kingdom of heaven is within you, what you want to make or do out of this, okay?
So I think a lot of times people don't, it is difficult for them to get out of their circumstance because they don't understand the power of the mind generally.
Right.
And I think if people start understanding how flexible, how the mind is, some people say, well, that's how I am.
That's true.
Right?
Very true.
And not realizing that you are your mind.
Exactly.
And you can make your
Let
mind
me
how you want it to be.
Some of the more learned people, I should say, more learned in medicine, are now recognizing just what you're saying as powerful. And watch what they do. And I don't know how many people are aware of this. University of Saskatchewan, on the teaching hospital, I think Alberta as well, maybe British Columbia too, have now got, I won't say witch doctors, but Native Indian on staff, on the medical staff. These are Native Indians, Red Indians.
Right.
Why are they on staff?
Because they have a whole history of medicine.
Well, the patients let's say native patients come in there, could respond to these people who understand their mind better,
That's right.
and they could understand it, and the wise powers that be, the authorities, they recognize that gap, that thing that could be bridged, and brought these people in, and they are now on staff, what is it called, native Indian doctors, they bring in, they could do the little knock-knock ceremony or whatever, and the patients feel that they're emotionally better understood
Right.
than by the white doctor or there. So they have these people on staff. So it fits in exactly what you're saying. They're understanding the mind. What some of these authorities and some of these hospitals are now beginning to understand is that, yes, much can be done with this further understanding of the mind with these people, and they're bringing it in and incorporating these things.
No, but even individuals, if individuals understand clearly the power of the mind
Yeah.
and what it could do and how easily it could change, you could change in 1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
If you have decided that, listen, I am going to be this way instead of that way,
Yes. Right.
you could change.
Right. Right.
So that is the ability that the mind has.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very formidable thing.
I would be
that has been
surprised
to us.
if the mind has some sort of fundamental element that could come true or beginning to come true as a miracle in what we can do. Let me give an example of something like this. There is in Christianity the Holy Spirit as doing various things. In Hinduism, there's what is called the Atman, the self. It's a very noble concept in Hinduism, by the way. It talks about if you can recognize yourself, the self of others and so on, you tend to bring about peace. You don't want to hurt.
Well, in Islam, is the nafs
the ruh
also. Right?
Okay, you have that. Krishnamurti of the Theosophical Society, God is in all of us, so we must be kind to one another. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru said, we should not have a competition of acquisitiveness, but in sharing with the good, profiting the other people. And I can give you some other people like Jalaluddin Rumi and other people and so on. Anyway, the point is, you have, that's a Ruh in Islam, you have Atman in Hinduism. Atman is a very noble concept that tells you it's love that embraces everybody, leaves out nobody. At a fundamental level of self, the Atman embraces all and celebrates diversity. It celebrates diversity, but it embraces everybody, okay? Islam has Ruh, as I said, and so on. To me, in my private little way, I could see something looming here going to come up later on where with all these different religions, and the IRO I see is not, is very far from any of this yet, where somewhere, as Bernard Towers is saying, some of these things need to be pulled together, And there is, in science, what is called a hypothetical construct. A hypothetical construct or concept is something like this. Something is behaving in a way, but in a certain way, it gives you the feeling, the impression there's something there, but you haven't got a name for it or anything. Now, you get a parallel example of this in electricity. When electricity was coming, just being implemented, something along the wire was moving along. So it was called a hypothetical construct. Two great psychologists invented these two comparative terms. Hypothetical construct. Then later, it was discovered, yes, something does move across the wire. It's called an electron now. They call it an electron. Now it becomes an intervening variable. It moves from hypothetical to real. I must give credit to those two psychologists. The attention was drawn to me many years ago by a fellow named, a professor named Neil Agnew at the University of Saskatchewan, a brilliant guy who tickled my imagination with people like Thomas Paine and Bertrand Russell and so on. I don't know if he's still alive. That is Dr. Neil Agnew, a great guy. Anyway, hypothetical construct, intervening variable. So we have all these things, Atman, Ruh, Holy Spirit. When Sister Mother Teresa looked in the eyes of a sick person, and she could see in his eyes the Holy Spirit in something in her religion, something in which she participates. And that's why she can go and hug him without fear of getting infected, Because she sees something in which she's participating in, and they're together. This is, well, as Krishnamurti said, God is in all of us, so we must be kind to one another, and so on. So I could see this, a hypothetical construct coming along, and then later on maybe in something very well we can talk about.
I just want to go back to the power of the mind and look at it from the standpoint of people who run marathon.
Yes.
And they really, all their physical, regardless of how much training they do, what kind of nutrition they are prepared themselves, after half the marathon, they have used up all of that. It is their mind that takes them for the other half. And in most sporting endeavors, regardless of how much you train, there is the mind that takes you there. And the mind is a big part of the whole process.
You bring back to mind, I think I may have mentioned him before, Greg Louganis, the only
the
diver that got 10,
Right.
10, 10. He explained he spent more time in the imagination than in actual practice.
Of his technique.
Right. He'll sit and psychologically picture himself moving, going to get that dive perfect. He said, sometimes it took me 40 times on this before I go and make the actual move. So this is just saying. And a psychologist fellow who examined many winners in sports and so on found that 60 to 90%, more like the 90% of the successes is a matter of the mind. Tom Landry, the coach for the Dallas Cowboys, says, if you think you're going to fail, you'll find some way to fail.
Yeah.
He said, the mind is a very big thing. Think of, another guy, Billy King says, think of winning, and very likely you come out winning. And again, just like this, we mentioned this last time, Bannister, the dentist fellow down in South Africa, who said, when everybody said you couldn't run a mile in 4 minutes, and he didn't think that way.
Yeah.
And then what happened? What changed there? Wasn't the body that changed physically? It's the mind, Once he broke it, the mind changed, and he could.
Even in sports now, that a lot of times in team sports too, what the coach says one at the beginning of the game and at halftime makes a big difference.
Yes.
And that is attributed to how he inspires and what he puts in the mind of the players. So the good coach who could do that and relate to the players and get them motivated is the one who is a good coach that generates or delivers success. So these are things that even with as parents, if we understand that, now we could deal with our children in a particular way.
Right.
Even within a corporate environment, the managers and supervisors who deal with their workers in a particular way,
As I mentioned,
even at a boardroom level.
Yeah, I mentioned last time two corporate superstars, Thomas Watson, the founder of IBM, and John Scully, president of Apple. They now have mind training for their employees, so the important employees, and they're reporting great success, right? So much of this has not yet been published, but some of it going great guns. But these powerful guys have got these mind training elements in the picture because it works, And
I think the point that we want to bring across is that even as individuals, understanding what our minds could do, we ourselves could generate that change in ourselves.
Right.
And make us positive, change us from negative to positive.
Right.
Or change us in a new direction.
Right. And now there are some places that are trying to get some of that element going where they tend to say, we don't want to keep things separated out like body and I mean, we could do that for talk, for convenience and so on. But the idea of mind, physical body and so on, let's not forget it's intricately woven. And we now know, for example, the mind with its language of thoughts, ideas, sensation and so on, communicate down with the language of the physical, with hormones, messenger molecules, information molecules and so on. So that link is where a lot of research is beginning to open up and go into. How is that really coming through there as such, And we come to know that faith is very important. Hope is very, very important. Anything that offers hope, whether it be placebo, whether it be a feeling within yourself. Patients in hospitals where they have they have a room with the sky exposed, the celestial connection, so to speak, and they feel good about it, they tend to get better faster. They feel there's a transcendence up there, God, that can help them. There's hope, and they tend to get better faster. So you get all these kind of things going. Now we have people indeed who are saying that we want people to understand that we have at least three great things going when we talk about body, mind, and so on. We talk about the brain, the nerves, and so on, as one big entity, and the power of the brain, the mind. And then there is another area called endocrinology that has to do with hormones, how the body works, and so on. That's the second very important part of our makeup. And then there is the immunology side of how you fight disease. So when you have these three things going together, you have a powerful defense that could it can hold you against a lot of diseases, hold you away from a lot of diseases, and make you very strong, not only in getting away from diseases, but protecting you from diseases.
Perfect time to stop.
Okay.
Because we are out of time now.
We are out of time.
All right.
Okay. So let me just quickly say now.
Quickly.
Very quickly. New research is showing that, trying to get people to understand that the mind-body connection being validated very strongly by now doctors trying to see how they could come up with the idea scientifically about how we can construct new belief systems that will help us make us work, through and so on. So, and as I said before, I'll repeat this again, that the doctors, traditional doctors today must realize that they have to transcend their professional ethnicity and come up with a new language linked with the complementary approaches toward collaborative care. And on that score,
all right.
Say bless you.
So we have covered, this has been our series, and we have to thank Dr. Bakridan for joining us and taking us through this whole positive emotion cycle and all the ins and outs and all the different directions that it took us. But I think, I am sure that most people would understand that they have a great amount of power over their own body, against sickness, against any challenge that they have. And with both faith and positive emotions, a lot could be accomplished.
Love.
And love.
Right.
So with that, we thank you for joining us and ask you to join us once again next week for another interesting different perspectives. Jazakallah, assalamu alaikum.